Hey friends, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast with your hosts, Kristen,
Nicole,
and Hannah. Come join our porch swing conversations.
filled with lots of faith, hope, and heart.
Hey Postables, we are back with another episode, and today we will be recapping The Road Less Traveled. Hannah and Kristen, they couldn't make it today, but we have a very special guest and fellow Postable on the podcast, Penny. Welcome to the podcast, Penny.
Oh, thank you for having me today. Nicole, I can't tell you, when you reached out, I was just so overwhelmed and excited that you'd think of me.
Oh, you're welcome. We're glad to have you on.
Well, thank you. And I am very glad to be here.
Yes, and we've been planning this for a while. I know that there was one episode a while back you weren't able to join, but we're glad that you can now.
Well, thank you. You came through with your promise. You told me that even though I couldn't make it, you were going to invite me again. And You're true to your word, as always.
Yes. Never break a promise.
Never. Oliver always keeps his promises.
Yes. The Road Less Traveled, it premiered on February 11th, 2018. It guest stars Jamie Lynn Sigler as Rachel, Christian Convery as Danny, Jason Cermak as Jack, and Marilyn Norrie as Minnie. And for all the Hardys out there, Jason Cermak, who played Jack, he played Dr. Burns in season 3 of When Calls the Heart. The Postables take a road trip in an old Winnebago in order to track down a small boy who they fear may have been kidnapped. The discovery of a 1980s era instant camera and the unusual photographs it contains send our team on a wild ride across Colorado using the pictures as a guide. That's a great synopsis for this movie.
Yeah, it is a great synopsis, and that is what makes Martha's Signed, Sealed, Delivered so set apart from anything that's out there, because all you have to do is read that synopsis and it just makes you want to watch that movie.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. What are your thoughts on this movie when you watched it for the first time?
When I watched it for the first time, I watched it as it premiered, as I have all of the Signed, Sealed, Delivered movies. I've been a fan since the pilot in 2013, and I have followed everything in order as to its air date on Hallmark. And I was hooked, I think, at the coffee cart, just like everyone else was. But as this movie goes, what I loved about it is the growth that Shane and Oliver and Norman and Rita experienced. It was tremendous, and they faced problems that you don't see customarily on other Hallmark shows. There was no fluff to it. They hit problems head on, and they learned how to trust the timing and have faith in each other while they were holding hands, so to speak.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. This was a wonderful movie, and I would have to say it's one of my favorites, even though I love them all.
I agree with that. There were times where I often thought maybe it was not my favorite, or even in any of my top movies. But the more I watched it and saw everything, the characters evolve, and how Martha just weaves that story together. It was truly one of her best.
Yeah, they're all amazing though. But
they are all. There's
really
not a one I wouldn't watch at least 150 times.
Exactly. Yeah. Do we want to get into the letter story first?
Yes.
With Rachel and Danny.
The letter story is excellent, because that was also about mending relationships and not judging and not assuming, and it everything tied together.
Yeah, I agree. The movie, it starts with an 80s party, which I really loved. I would love to go to that 80s party. It looked really fun. The music playing, I love the song that is in the background, Live It Up. And we've actually heard that in a prior SSD movie. I won't say which one, because that is a trivia question later on in the episode. But think about that, Postables, for the trivia when we get to it.
That's right, because everybody's going to listen, and they're going to be playing that trivia game right along with us.
Yes. We see two women. They are taking photos together with an instant camera. And then a young boy who we know is Danny from the cast list takes the instant camera and hides under a table. Oh, young boys. Mischievous or mischievous.
They are mischievous.
We see a young woman, Rachel. She comes into the room asking if anyone has seen him. She quickly finds him under the table and, she looks at him and she says, "What did I say about running off?"
And I like the fact that when she did, she was totally in mom mode, scared mom mode, and she reaches in and just pulls him right out.
Yes. Yeah, I did too. I love that how, when she goes to pull him from under the table, one of the guys sitting at the table looks like, "What are you doing?"
Exactly. But they never noticed him sliding under the table, but they noticed the mom yanking him out.
I know.
It was so funny. I was like, well, no wonder no one knew where he was. They were oblivious.
The next scene we see is Rachel and Danny in the car. They are traveling, but we don't know where they're traveling to. Is Rachel actually his mom, or was he kidnapped? What was your thought? Because at this point, we don't know that she is actually his mom.
We don't know that she is his mom. It definitely had not revealed itself yet, but it just seemed, from my standpoint, being a mom, she seemed so comfortable with him, and he really did feel comfortable with her. There was nothing about him that seemed like he was in distress or wanted to get away from her. And that is a testimony to Martha's writing as well, because she is a mother. She's not wanting to write a story. She wants the edge of it to be there where you kind of think, what could this scenario be? But yet there's a part of it that kept it in the back of your mind that he was in an okay place. He wasn't upset.
Yeah, you have a good point. I agree with you. That's what I think as well. Although, for a split second, the first time I watched it, I thought it could have been possible, but then
I agree with you, Nicole. That split second is what she put in there, where you just all of a sudden you see them in the car, and until you see the body language and how things were going, you could easily thought that he had been kidnapped. That's terrifying.
Yeah, especially with Danny's comment when he said, "I want Birdie. My daddy gave him to me. I want my daddy." That's a split second that made me think, is he being kidnapped? But, he's not, of course.
But also, too, you think like a true postal detective, because they thought that too out the gate.
Yes. They arrive at Summits Point Lodge. Danny takes a photo of his note, his backpack, and the USPS mailbox, then puts the camera in the mailbox.
Yes, he does.
I wrote in my notes, that is one smart young boy.
He was, and played so well. The scenes that he was in, you would never even think that he was as young as he was, because he was just he was quite a good little actor.
He is, yes, he's a wonderful young actor in the Hallmark world. We see the intro with the Denver skyline and the song "Deliver Me," which has been changed just a little bit, but I love it. I love the way they changed it for this movie.
I do too. And it's just, there obviously we have that in some of the other movies, but in this one, it just sticks out in my mind. I've actually had to rewind it several times because I just get the chills when that plays for some reason. It's like you're walking into their inner sanctum. And when they play that, it's all encompassing. I love it.
Yeah, it's so catchy. When I was watching the movie last night, I was literally dancing along to the music.
It's when it comes on, I don't care where it's at. There's a commercial now on television, and when the Signed Sealed Delivered song comes on, I'm just like, I'll stop wherever I am just to listen to it.
Yes. Yeah, I do too. Every time the Signed Sealed Delivered song comes on in an intro, I jam out to that too.
I know. It's like, wow, just love it.
Yes. Oliver and Norman are working in the lab while Shane and Rita are organizing mail in the DLO. I love this scene, and Oliver and Norman, they're working with chemical solutions. And Norman says, fire in the hole. We're fine. Everything's okay. Again.
I love it, because they seemed like they were two 12-year-old boys in there. And it was funny because it was so significant with them as a couples as well, because the look on Rita and Shane, the expressions of, oh no, what are they up to now?
Yeah.
It was really charming.
Yeah, it was. I love Shane's comment. She's like, good to know again.
Exactly. Like she's half worried and half not worried, because it's becoming redundant.
Then Rita's like, maybe this is a good time to see Hazel.
Exactly. It was funny. That was such a well thought out, and with them with their goggles on in there,
yes.
it was just
that was perfect.
It was perfect. It was so funny. They Oliver and Norman pulled that whole comedic scene off, and it was one where you could not do without that scene. It was perfect.
Yeah. Shane, Rita, and Hazel in the terminal annex. I love when Rita picks up the coconut and she's like, ew, this one has a hole in it.
That's so great. She's so descriptive, but yet Rita is quite funny. She really is. And I just love the whole thing where it's the way that Hazel kind of barges in to everyone's life, and ordinarily it would be bothersome, but she just is so doggone sweet that you just can't help it. Like, you want her to be there.
Yes.
She's such a great actress, and her character, she has really defined it over time, and I'll come to love Hazel.
Yes, I'm so glad that she came back for this movie.
Yeah, she was perfect. She's very funny.
Yes, Jill Morrison is wonderful in this role.
And she is quite a good actress. She's in a Hallmark movies, but Signed, Sealed, Delivered is her ditzy little comedic role, and I love it.
Yes, I love it too. I'm glad that she's part of the SSD family.
I am too, and I think they are as well. Everybody loves Hazel.
Shane finds the instant camera as they're going through all the new mail that has come through.
All the unattached items that are
the unattached items, yes. Shane and Rita, they are in the DLO, and Oliver and Norman, they are working in the lab. And then Oliver comes out and Rita is looking at the bridal magazine. Shane asks Oliver to look at the camera. The coconut milk has washed off most of the writing, including the expiration date and the majority of the name and address.
And this might be the time that we call Rita in, because all you have to do is give Rita one little clue and she just remembers everything.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, she's very good at that. The Postable's talking about the camera. I love this scene. Oliver says he can lift some remnants of the ink with the new solution. Norman says it looks like a soluble felt tip blue marker was used. And this is, after Shane and Oliver's little flirty moment, which we'll get to later on.
Shane was getting to the point that she was, after Oliver's little speech about imperfections, because the imperfections that make something perfect.
Yes.
And she didn't know if she wanted to clean that little bit of dirt that was left on his cheek off, or just leave him perfect.
Yes. We'll talk a little bit about that scene when we get to Shane and Oliver, which I'm excited about.
Oh, yes.
That's one of my favorite scenes in this movie.
Mine too.
Norman is going to try and develop the photos. Oliver asks Shane and Rita to track down the make and model of the photo. The disposable sling was changed to the Fun Shoot in 1989, and they stopped using cardboard housing on disposable cameras in 2003, which makes it at least. And then Oliver comes in and he's like, big hair and big hair, as he's showing the photos. Did you ever have a disposable camera?
Yes.
Younger?
And think about it. It was just like Norman or Oliver was telling Rita a few minutes ago back in that scene where they're all standing there and Shane cleans off his cheek. Beforehand, that's when Oliver was saying that those disposable cameras would be nice on the tables. And back in the 80s, people did that. They put the disposable cameras on there for guests to take lots of candid shots. And it was kind of funny because well, I didn't do that at my wedding, but I knew people that did, and it kind of brought back those nostalgic memories to see that happening on Signed, Sealed, Delivered.
Yeah. I think we used to get them all the time when I was a little girl, and I always had so much fun with them. And we would always
my kids too.
We would always have to go to the photo store and get them developed.
Yes. And it was amazing to my girls that they like, how did they get the film out of it? And if they crack it open, does it damage the film? And it was a hard concept when they were younger to learn that because they did the same thing. And then they have the Polaroids as well. Yeah.
Yes. I actually have a Polaroid camera because those are coming back now.
Yeah, they are actually. Very cool. The things from the past tend to circle back around.
Yes, they do. I'm a 90s kid, so I know a little bit about the disposable cameras.
Yes, you do. I love it.
Oliver and Norman looking at photos in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the first few photos, they are from the 80s party. And then the next photos, they were taken from a moving car. And then there's one with melons superimposed over a photo of a US 50 West sign.
Mm-hmm.
So they are taken from a different person, possibly.
Yes, they were. And what I love is that our postal detectives are, it was just a testimony to how they follow the evidence and the clues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They always do a great job with that.
They do. They do. If you have anything that's lost, just give it to them. They'll find it for you.
Yeah. The third photo is of a food stand, which we'll see later on in the movie, or we do see later on in the movie. The last photo is of the backpack, note, and mailbox, which we already know was taken by Danny.
Yes.
And the note says, "Find me, Daddy. We're in gray car. I want to go home." This made me a little teary-eyed. I was like, oh.
Well, it was sad. And you knew that no matter what, even if that was his mom or wasn't his mom, there was just something that was very lost about Danny, that you knew that there was just something. And you could also see from Rachel. Rachel was conflicted the whole time, and her expressions showed that. And everything that went on with her was one step, one foot in front of the other to try to figure out what was going on in her life.
Yeah. Oliver and Norman show up at Bistro Ramon, and they show Shane and Rita the photos that were just developed.
And that's tormenting for both of them, because as much as they love Zach in real life and they come to love Ramon, they still were not at that love relationship, that bromance. They weren't there yet, because Ramon was still a thorn in both their sides.
I know. Yes. We gotta love Ramon, though. I'm glad he's back for this movie as well. Zach is awesome.
He is. I don't think that there aren't too many people in the world that give of themselves like Zach Santiago does. And I just think that it's another credit to Martha's wisdom and vision when she picks actors to come in and join that postable family. And Zach is just like Gregory, are just two of the greatest people, and they just fit so well in that group.
They do. I'm glad that both of them are part of the cast.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to meet both of them in Eric and Kristen and Crystal and Jeff too at Ramen Drama.
I can't either. There's actually not one of them that we shouldn't all be honored to meet, because they are wonderful at their craft. They are good to their fans, and they are all humble in that they understand every day as a gift.
Yes, I'm so excited.
I am too.
A little over 2 months.
I know. I have the calendar out, and I'm starting the countdown is on.
Going back to the scene with them at the bistro.
Yes.
They're talking about the photos, and Shane and Rita, they have the ones from the 80s party. And Rita is saying they believe they were taken at a hotel for a New Year's Eve party, because there's a banner that reads something the 80s. And then, Shane goes on to say end of the 80s or farewell to the 80s. And there's also a podium in the photo that spells out what they believe is Pueblo.
Yes.
I love the way Norman delivers that line. He's like, Pueblo.
I know. He is the master at delivering those one-liners or just a short sentence, and it just brings me back to I believe it was Lost Without You, when he was going to be a little bolder.
Yes.
and only Jeff can deliver a line like that to where it has so many different meanings to it.
Yeah. I think his line in that movie was, and allow me to be a little bolder.
A little bolder, yeah, because he wanted to follow that dream and perhaps be he needed to be bolder, and it kind of fit all in with Colorado and a boulder and being bolder.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah. I love the next scene in the DLO when they're all working together.
Yes.
And they're looking at the photos, and I think Shane said something, and then Oliver said there's no expiration date on the truth.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite lines in this movie.
It is, and it has if anything embodies Oliver's character, it is telling the truth. Yes. And he was always a moral lightning rod. And to him, the most important thing, and it was very hard for him to understand and comprehend, that not everyone tells the truth, because he always tells the truth. Yeah, that line was beautiful.
Yes. Cities ending in city. Cannon, Central, Commerce, Garden, Lake, Orchard, and Sugar. I love the way Rita delivers that.
It was great, because she literally just, when she tells something, she lets you understand exactly how her fact came about. And it's awesome. Rita is the most unique character.
Yes, I love Rita. I love all of them.
I do too.
I definitely
what's not to love, Nicole?
I know. I definitely would not be able to say them as fast as she did. I would get tongue twisted probably on the second one.
That's okay, because we all have our gifts. It's just Rita's gifts, and obviously Crystal's gift of reciting it are just phenomenal.
Yes, she does a great job.
She does.
Rita. Oliver calls Dale to help with child abductions. So we hear of Dale again. She's unable to help without sufficient descriptive information of the child or captor and confirmation of when an abduction took place. I'm glad that they brought Dale up again, because she does a great job in that role as well.
She does. Dale was so necessary because she was the link to a woman in Oliver's past that had not left and had remained a very good friend with him, and probably was his oldest friend, except for obviously Mrs. Genzinger, which she was a different role model.
Yeah.
But this was somebody that he had a history with. And as he tells it, how they vacillated back and forth, but became just strong friends because the timing was never right for the two of them to be more than friends.
Yeah.
I liked Dale. I didn't feel Dale she had no hidden agenda.
No.
You could tell what she was thinking, and she was straightforward.
Yes. I hope that we see Amelia again in her role as Dale, because she's great.
She really is. She's such a great actress, and it disappointed me that she did not come back for the wedding.
No. Maybe it was just scheduling.
It is, and Martha has her reasons for what she does, and but it would have been kind of cool for her to be back there. But it was fine that she wasn't, because she'll be back for the next one, right? No,
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Amber Alerts didn't begin until 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Shane is trying to access earlier records from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Yep.
While Shane is talking to Oliver about this, Rita is on the phone with a woman named Sylvia, who works at one of the hotels. She said they had an 80s party 3 weeks ago. The banner read "Memories of the 80s."
Mm-hmm. Everything is starting to fall together.
Yes. And the banquet room is at the Hotel Mesa Pueblo. And it was booked a month ago by the Pueblo North High School class reunion of 1988.
There you have it, the big hair.
Yes, the big hair. I love the scene when they decide to go to Pueblo and Oliver says, "Norman, Rita, may we engage your recreational vehicle?"
Oh my gosh. When he says that, I literally, I just have to listen to it again and again. It's like I keep putting it on loop because it is classic Oliver.
Yes.
And it's almost like you've got him back when he is 12 years old and he's playing with the science project, and then you take him out there and he is just Mr. Perfection with the King's English. It's just a riot.
Oh my goodness. And Rita's comment cracked me up too. She's like, "What a great idea. It'll be like a practice honeymoon, only better because we'll all be together." Oh, Rita, I do love you. And then
and then Oliver telling Norman, "You are marrying a wonderful woman." I love it. And then Norman, of course, just like nods, like, "Yeah, I know."
He's like, "Thank you. Have I mentioned I don't know how to drive that thing?"
Off topic. It's almost like when he gets to the point with he doesn't know how to swim, he doesn't know how to go in a canoe, he doesn't know how to drive a Star Cruiser. Norman's got a lot to learn.
Yes. And we'll probably mention that comment in our recap of To the Altar when we get to it in a couple.
Such a great comment.
Yes. The Postables leaving for Pueblo. I love this short little scene as well. You know, they're talking about the Star Cruiser, and I think Rita says something like, "My parents put 200,000 miles on this thing."
I know. And of course, Oliver is just excited to say, "Well, we'll have to honor the next 200 miles." You know, it's it's so funny.
Yeah. They leave for Pueblo and they arrive at the Hotel Mesa Pueblo. The first thing I wrote in my notes, "Poor dog with the sneezing."
Oh, I know.
And the flower allergy.
I know. He definitely he was having a rough time of that.
Yeah. I also noticed, and you probably have noticed this too, the guy that plays Doug is the same one that plays the intern.
Yes.
In Truth Be Told.
Yes. And I love it. It's they're the characters. I love how they're interchangeable.
Yes.
I love how Dale's character was
Marie.
Also, she was Marie. And I it's amazing. I just I
Yes.
like it.
And we also have another interchangeable role in this movie, Minnie.
Minnie, yes, because she's also Peg.
Practically perfect brownies. Which I love too. She's a great actor as well.
Well, she plays like that mom figure, and it was
Yes.
perfect. And when she was in there, everybody was expecting her. Like, I was shocked that she had the apple pie, because I was expecting her specialty to be brownies.
I can't wait till we talk about that scene because she's great.
She is awesome. I love her.
Sylvia recognizes the women in the photos. Their names are Joanne and Becca. They are the hotel's accountants and do their audits for them.
Mm-hmm.
The next scene always makes me laugh when they meet with Joanne, Becca, and Jeremy. And first it's just Joanne and Becca, and they're talking about the pictures and the disposable camera. And
Yes.
they're saying that there was only one at the party because it was part of a display.
Mm-hmm.
I love Becca's comment. She's like, I miss clicking. Right to the camera.
That was great. Just so random.
Yeah. And then Joanne said something like, and nowadays you have to press and slide. And
oh, yes.
I don't know the other word, but that was hilarious.
Yeah, they were actually in awe of the disposable camera.
Yeah. Joanne's husband, Jeremy, was recording video that night. This comment makes me laugh every single time. Class of 88, 88, 88, 88, 88.
That was prime. That was really funny.
Oh my God. I crack up every single time.
I forgot that line.
Just the way he delivers it is perfect.
It almost sounds like a cheer.
It does. And I was a cheerleader in high school. So
it's like, it sounds just like a cheer. It was like the way he did it. You just, and the wind up for it, you were just like, yeah. Man, that's great.
Yes. They go back to the Hotel Mesa Pueblo and they talk to Doug again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was so thoughtful of Norman to bring Doug.
I thought the same thing when he must have given that such thought of it bothered, because, and you could see the look on Norman's face the first time around when Doug was sneezing. He just kept getting that look on his face like he needs tissues. He's just so kind. He's just so kind-hearted. And
I think he even mentioned, he's like, I got the ones with aloe in them or something.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's just, he thinks of everything. He's going to be the best husband for Rita.
He is. Yeah. And he already is, of course.
He already is. He's such a sweetheart.
Yes.
Mr. DeLorman.
Mr. DeLorman.
Mr. DeLorman.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Rachel's credit card was declined, so she used cash.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about Rachel and Danny, or Doug is telling the Postables about them. And he said when Rachel checked out the next morning, she seemed confused. He asked her if she needed directions somewhere, but she said she was okay. A couple minutes later, she was still standing outside. It was as if she was stuck in another world. She was looking down the road as if she couldn't make up her mind which way to go. And
a very good description by Doug.
Yes, he did a great job with that.
He sure did. And he remembered
the stuffed dinosaur.
The dinosaur.
Yes, that someone in catering found. And it is an unattached item, according to the Postables.
And I will tell you, Oliver is all about the unattached items.
I love his line, "We never give up."
No, we never give up. And what I don't think a lot of people realize the unattached items are so important to him, just like the letters to children or by children, because he was disappointed so much as a child, and he was always left behind, it seemed. And so he wanted to champion, especially for the child, and especially this being a little boy. And he just wanted to make sure that he found him and was able to bring that dinosaur to him, kind of like Fred.
Yes, kind of like Fred.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for people who have not seen Vows.
Yeah, who knows what Fred is? I don't know.
We know.
We'll just call him FF. Fearless Fred.
Fearless. I love that line in Vows.
It is like prime.
Yes. The Postables, they leave the hotel and they're talking about, where to go next. And Rita says that there are 2 towns nearby that end in city: Sugar City, which is 60 miles east, and Cannon City, which is 30 miles west of the US 50. So they decide to head to Cannon City. The next scene is when they are in the RV going to Cannon City, or they're making their way there. And I love Shane's line. They're talking about something. Oh, Shane asked Oliver what he was thinking about. And I think it was about Danny and Rachel and the dinosaur. And Shane says, in the words of the great Oliver O'Toole, Norman, any mistake can be traced to an assumption.
That was such a great line.
Yes.
Such a great line. Oliver never did really come out of his, he was being extremely thoughtful and contemplative in that scene. And even her talking and him answering, you could just see from his expression that he was still on the trail of finding the little boy to match him up to the dinosaur.
Yeah. They decide to stop and get lunch as Shane and Rita are getting out of the RV. Rita's line, she's like, 2 ham and cheese, 1 turkey, and your usual? I try not to eat tuna from the same place I buy motor oil. Good advice.
That was awesome. That was great.
That's great advice.
It's funny. And Shane is, I think what's the most beautiful part about her is she is resilient. She can do anything with anybody, and she can have such a quick wit and a sharp tongue at times. But when it comes to Rita and Norman, she is so tender with both of them. Like when they say something goofy or whatever, she always is very, she's almost reverent of them and their feelings. And it's a beautiful thing. Yes. I love Shane's friendship with Rita and Norman. Yes. As a sister figure for them. It is. They I always say it when I'm talking about all of them, because they started out as colleagues, because with Oliver's humility, he always wanted them to feel like they were a part of something together as the Postables. Even though he was the section leader, he always was humble and wanted it to be about them being colleagues. And then they go from colleagues to friends to brothers and sisters and family. And it was just such a beautiful evolution. It is, yeah. Shane and Oliver's conversation after lunch. Shane's phone is dinging constantly. And, Shane is talking about how she's envious of Oliver. And Shane's line, she says, there is something to be said about being out on the open road without and then she stops and starts putting the pieces together. And she says that Rachel did head west on US 50 and she was headed to Cannon City. Her next line is, what if she got there and decided to keep going? All the photos taken weren't before Cannon City. Oliver says, they're not behind us, they're ahead of us. That's right. Yeah. And she and he put those clues together. And that's when you start to see as well the cohesive that they have. And it's Martha is putting it out there that it's professional in one light and it's personal in the other.
Yes. The Postables, they arrive at the roadside store, Melvin's Melons. And we see a flashback of Rachel and Danny. The Postables, they're looking at the photo of the roadside stand and, trying to, think about how the photo was taken, like the angle it was taken from.
And it had to be at a child's angle, not an adult.
Yes. The next thing I have in my notes, Rachel's wallet fell in the trash.
Oh, I know. That was so disheartening when that happened.
I was like,
I know.
No.
She had no money. She had no nothing. And she's got this little boy. And that was one of the first sign. Well, that was the first sign where you really knew that someone had voiced that was her child, because Danny called out mom from the car.
Yeah. It's like, Mom, are you ready for something? Or, Mom, let's go. I think that's what he said.
And I love the Southern hospitality that they had of the guy putting the items, for the trip for Danny back in there, even though she couldn't afford. It was just amazing. And that was where she knew that she had found comfort in that area that she was in, because they were kind of shielding her from what was going on.
Yeah. I love how the guy at the roadside stand, I think his name was Albert. It says it on IMDb. I looked it up, but Albert gives her the gummies for Danny on the house. That was awesome.
It was, because he was present in the moment when that was happening, and he wasn't just a bystander taking her money. He was actually that to me, from watching Touched by an Angel back in the day, that was a touched by an angel aha moment. And that was where you saw the good in the world. And that's what Sign Seal Delivered brings to their audience, is the good in the world.
I agree wholeheartedly. He knows of Minnie's Cafe. So at this point, the Postables are already talking to him, and Shane starts to look on the GPS where Minnie's is, but her phone has died. And she's like, I think I left my charger at the DLO. And Albert says something like, I don't know why people use those things. I like my words on paper. And Oliver says exactly my sentiment.
They found a kindred spirit. And the funniest part of that whole scene, though, was when Shane said the word hotspot, and Oliver almost like fell off his chair. He was like,
I can't wait to talk about that scene when we get to it. When we get to it with their segment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or precisely. Oliver used the word precisely, not exactly, but still. Yeah.
Funny.
They believe that Rachel is running away from a bad situation. So at this point, they truly believe that Rachel is Danny's mother. The Postables, they arrive at Minnie's, and we get another flashback of Rachel and Danny. I love how Shane, Oliver, Rita, and Norman try to find the table.
Yeah.
That was an awesome scene.
I'm telling you, when they were synchronized in their stance, Norman, I don't know why, but it just calls back to me when he was doing those gestures in Christmas. Yes. And he was so good. And then there you have them all, each one of them doing their own little part of that scene, and it came together so great.
It did.
I wonder how many they had to have for that.
I don't know. I love the one that is like the promo photo that is on the Hallmark website. I think it was the first one, the first table they go to see if that was the right one.
It was great though. That was awesome.
Yeah. Rachel realized that she lost her wallet. Again, we see some very nice things happening with Minnie. She
Yeah.
tells Rachel about the lodge and she offers her a pie. I
Mhm.
believe it was an apple pie, if I'm correct.
Mhm.
And I love Minnie's line. She says, sometimes a moment is all that we need to know where we need to go to next.
She's right.
Yes. Words
She
of
wanted
wisdom.
she wanted her to know that's she was safe and just take it one step at a time.
Yeah. Minnie goes up to the table and she starts talking to them and asking if Rachel and Danny are in trouble. And of course, they're not allowed to divulge any information at all. And Minnie quickly says that she remembers them and that they were going to Dinosaur National Monument in Grand Junction. Sounds a lot different than what we hear later on in the movie.
Well, it definitely is, and they were trying really fast to cover Rachel's tracks.
Yes. Yeah. Which is understandable because, I mean, at this point, she didn't know that they were from a special task force of the USPS.
No, and when she hears that they're from a government agency, she immediately thinks, well,
Yeah.
this husband that's not nice has gotten the authorities to track down his wife and his child, and they may come to harm.
Yeah. The line from Shane after they talked to Minnie, when they're looking at the map, and Oliver says that they should probably just head home to Denver the next
I
day.
remember that.
Shane says, then we'll just have to pray for one, talking about a miracle.
And he
love
just
that.
looks at, I love that. And this was one where Shane really really came into an understanding of her faith. And she had it all along. Once she had really, from For Christmas, it had started evolving and developing. But this one really hit it home because it was almost like Oliver was having more doubts and insecurities about having faith in something, and she was doing nothing but hitting it home to him that this is what we'll do. And it all comes full circle in the canon when it gets to the point where he is so grateful to her for her faith.
Yes.
And I just love it. I just love it.
I do too. I didn't mention it in Lost Without You because unfortunately we ran out of time and it just wasn't able to be mentioned, but I love Shane's journey of faith in the canon. It's one of my favorite parts of this series.
It is. And I think what Martha did is out the gate with this little letter writer that had lost her faith because of something that happened, that it was no different than what happened to Oliver. It was just that it was her father, not her mother.
Yes.
And he had abandoned her, and she had felt like God had let her down because she wrote him a letter and he never answered it. And then when she came to realize what faith really is about and what family is really about, that was Martha setting the tone that you could be this little child or you can be an adult and lose your faith along the way because of circumstances, but there is always hope to find that again.
Yeah.
Because all it takes is just a little.
All it takes is just a little. Call back to 1 in a million.
Yep. I'm glad we had that moment. That was a good moment for us, wasn't it, Nicole?
Yes. They finally got the date.
That's right.
Oh goodness. This next scene of Rachel and Danny at the lodge and Oliver in the RV makes me cry every time.
Me too. I'm crying right now thinking about it. Oh my word.
I don't have all of the dialogue written down, but Danny says, "Don't cry, mommy. I'm sorry. I won't ask about daddy anymore. I promise."
Oh my gosh. Oh, that was rough. That was just.
And then, she goes on talking about his father, and then she says something like, "We have a place to stay for the night." And I think she says one other thing before she says, "I love you, Danny." And Danny said, "I love you too, Mommy."
Oh,
My
it
heart.
just, it's just too much.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, oh,
They played that scene perfectly.
they played, and what's really interesting is Jamie Lynn Sigler actually it was funny because any scene that she did have with Eric, they had she was a guest star for several episodes on Ugly Betty.
Wow, I didn't know
So
that.
yes, she was a pretty unique character. After he had on Ugly Betty, where his wife had passed away, he joined a cult, and she was kind of part of it. And she had lost her boyfriend, and they kind of commiserated over that. And she was trying to get him into the cult with her, and they played many scenes together. And it was interesting to see that there's so many of these actors all over that have just been drawn to Signed, Sealed, Delivered, and it's just so interesting to me. And Jamie Lynn Sigler is such a great actress.
She is, yes. I need to watch Ugly Betty.
Yeah, I've only watched it 9,000 times. So I own it. I have watched that one from the pilot on as well, and it's just, Eric said it one time, that cast and this cast, lightning in a bottle.
Yes.
And neither network, ABC or Hallmark, shall probably ever find two casts that are this cohesive.
Yes. I'm sure that I love it.
You will.
After we see the scene with Rachel and Danny, it cuts to Oliver. He is by himself in the RV, and he has Danny's stuffed dinosaur, and he says, "Who do you belong to?" Subtext or not?
Oh,
I think so. I think there's some I think there's some element of subtext in that line.
There is absolutely a subtext. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That line, he is the master at delivering
Subtext.
And I'm going to be honest, I would, if they had a showdown with multiple actors trying to produce the same lines, Eric Mabius would win hands down every time. And whoever can't see that, they're blind.
Yes. He does a phenomenal job.
He does.
The Postables leaving the lodge. So this is the following day.
Yes.
I love Jane's line. She says, "It was worth it just to see those two happy," referring to Rita and Norman. And we'll talk about Rye in a little while.
I know, so sweet.
I love Oliver's line. He says, "It was worth it just to see you survive 12 hours without internet access." Very funny.
It was, because that was a real couples moment with them, I felt, because it takes a true couple to put those little zingers in each other and come out like ha ha ha.
Yes.
Because he does the same thing. She does the same thing to him at times, and I love it when she does it and he goes ha ha ha.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really cute.
They find the mailbox Danny took a photo of. And the car pulls away that was parked right in front of it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I
love the look on Shane's face. She's like, "Oliver, I think we found the mailbox."
I know. And he's like, he takes the thing and looks at it, the picture, and he's like, "Oh my God, right."
Yes. They go back into the lodge to speak to Earl.
Oh, yeah.
And
they call Earl out too.
Yes, they did. Earl said he remembers Rachel and Danny and that they were going to Mesa Verde down to Durango because he wanted to see the Native American roads. And when they call him out, on what he says. And then they walk away. Norman tapping on the front desk.
Oh my gosh.
Call back to the pilot with the tapping on the golf cart.
Exactly. It's great. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
I love all the callbacks throughout the canon. They're awesome.
They are. And there are the little Easter eggs. They're everywhere.
There has been some that I didn't catch the first time that I watched them. And with how many times I've seen them now, I pick up on something else every single time.
Every time there's a little nuance, there's a little Easter egg that's there, a callback, whatever you may call it, foreshadowing, things that you don't necessarily catch the first 100 times.
Yes, it's awesome though.
I know, I love it.
And that's one thing that makes this show so different, because I mean, you catch something new every time.
It is. The reason that it has such a solid core nucleus fan base is because it is not predictable. You want to watch it because there is a little something there every time. And all the other ones are so predictable that there is nothing to catch the next time. It's always the same.
Yeah.
So hopefully,
I'm optimistic that there will be more.
I am too. I believe that we have to be until we're told no. I think 3.5 years proved that until you hear the word no, anything is possible.
Yeah, I agree. They're leaving the lodge again, and they continue talking about Rachel and Danny, and they're looking at the photo from Minnie's.
Uh-huh.
With the sign, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Right.
They come to the conclusion that Rachel couldn't afford to leave and she couldn't afford to stay. So she got a job at Minnie's to earn some money and pay for her time at the lodge, so she had a place to stay. And that so she could take Danny to the Dinosaur National Monument.
Exactly.
I love Shane's line. She says, "Are we back in the Rachel business?" Oliver says, "It would seem so." And Norman says, "Does this mean more pie?"
I know. He loves that apple pan pie.
Yes. I would probably be Norman because I love apple pie too.
I do too. And especially if it's Minnie's, because we all know she can bake.
Yes. The Postables go back to Minnie's and they meet Rachel. They return Bertie to Danny, which is really sweet.
He was so happy.
Yes, and the look on Minnie's face was priceless.
It was, especially when she realized that they were from the post office and that they were not there to hurt them.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was great.
Rita and Norman's conversation with Danny was really cute.
And that was a callback to when they were with Phoebe, because then it was when Oliver was in the DLO and they were saying goodbye to him that evening before they left. And when he, as sad as he was about the thought that he had lost his dad and that his, he had found out that his dad was alive, it just wasn't the dad he thought. And then he looks right at Norman and he said, "From what I saw today with Phoebe, you're going to make a great dad." And it was the same look that Oliver gave Norman sitting over there with Danny.
It was, yes, I agree. That's something else I just called on to when you said that.
And this is what is nice, I think, the shared experiences, Nicole, that you offer the Postables when they come with you, because there might be a moment that we think of something as well, and you've thought of something, and we kind of blend it together because we feed off of each other with just little bits and pieces of what each person remembers. And then before you know it, we put the whole story together, and it's really a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you to say.
No, it's true. I've watched your podcast and it's true. It's
Thank you.
This is a good forum for us, all of us, to have the opportunity to just say how we feel about each movie that's in the canon.
Yeah, exactly. Shane and Oliver have a conversation with Rachel. The first thing I have written down, Rachel's comment, just from the post office, call back to just friends and one in a million.
Yes, it was not a precise qualifier, was it? It was not good.
Oh gosh.
I know. And it was funny how she just immediately stumbled over her own words and trying to, and Oliver, of course, is oblivious. He's like, it's okay, it's no, it was so much, it was so much like the other movie.
But he says it's all right.
Yeah, it's all
But
right.
I'm sure that he was thinking about that moment, like, oh no, now I know how Shane feels.
Yeah, just friends. Mm-hmm. Good thing they weren't drinking Rose Hips tea.
Oh gosh. His father's name is Jack.
Yes.
And Rachel said that he didn't mean to hurt them and that he was a wonderful father. I love the flashback scene of the scavenger hunt. That was really cute.
It was cute. And what it did is it made Jack not the monster that everyone in the press had made him out to be.
Yeah.
And when all the story came out, you realized that he was just a man and he made a mistake and he got caught up in something that he had no idea what it would end up being. And so he was politically driven and, just power driven and didn't realize who he was playing with. And it was that showed him as a tender, loving father and a husband. Mm-hmm. And that is the part that brings the forgiveness.
Yes, it is. His last name is Marajak. He was the mayor of a town in northern Colorado up until about 6 months ago. He's in Cannon City at a correctional facility. He got caught up in a sketchy plan to invest the city employment pension fund with a financial group that turned out to be a scam.
Yep.
The guys he trusted took off with the money and basically left Jack behind. Mm-hmm. Which is sad.
It is sad, and that happens a lot. And it's I think what it is that Martha was showing everybody in that is that no matter what, if you own up to what mistakes you've made and you truly want to make amends for them, and that there has to be forgiveness in that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that she's going to want to continue her marriage with him or that things will not change in their dynamic when he gets out of prison, but it does mean that she will understand and find forgiveness in her heart.
Yes. One of Rachel's next lines, she says, "It's a small town. There isn't any place to go to avoid the stares and the whispers." Rachel didn't want to send Danny back to his school. She told him that they were moving somewhere new. She hasn't been able to tell Danny the truth about his father. He thinks that his dad is away somewhere at a new job. Oliver tells Rachel that with the clues he left behind, he's more than likely to figure it out sooner or later.
Yep. He was a smart little boy, and I just felt like Oliver was speaking from experience. Yeah. And I think part of him was saying that I think the outcome would have been different all those years with he and his with Papa Joe, mm-hmm. if he had known, if he had known more of what was going on. But he, Oliver was smart and he knew something was going on within his family dynamic and he figured things out. He just did not figure them out correctly.
Yeah. I love Shane's next line to Rachel, even though it is heartbreaking, it's a good exchange between the two of them. Mm-hmm. She says, "Good people do stupid things. I know that, but you lost your home, your friends, your reputation because of what Jack did. Maybe you'll forgive him, maybe you won't, but until you can face him, believe me, you'll always be sort of imprisoned yourself."
And it's so accurate because that's just like she said, not everybody is prepared immediately to forgive when someone has hurt them terribly. And she was a testimony to that. And it was actually, she was giving advice to someone that she was finding very difficult to take for herself.
Yep.
And I think that the what put them together was the fact that Shane needed to commit to a complete stranger that was going through what she was going through in a manner, and be able to face her sister. And she was telling the world at that moment, I don't know if I can forgive her, but I need to face her.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was so well written and so well played.
Yes, I agree. Her next line is really great too, even though that's another heartbreaking line. She
It was
said,
a tough scene.
we can tell ourselves that we're moving on, but we don't get very far when we're dragging so much behind us.
Oh boy, that is absolutely the truth, because not only will the truth set you free, but forgiveness sets you free.
Kristen and Jamie Lynn did a phenomenal job in this scene.
They did. They were raw with their emotions, and they were honest, and they both came to terms with something that was really heavy, that was burdening both of them.
Yeah,
it was awesome. Great scene.
it was. We see Shane make a deal with Rachel that if she reaches out to her husband, she will reach out to her sister. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Shane and Oliver in just a minute, because I love their exchange as well.
I do too. It's it's an entire piece of that movie.
Yes. Rachel and Danny go to see Jack at the correctional facility. So this is the last scene we see with the letter story in this movie. I thought it was a sweet scene, even though it was hard to see him where he was.
It was hard, and it was hard, and they didn't show it, because there's only, as they say, there's only so much time allotted for this movie with breaks and all. But the expansion on that scene would be how Danny reacted to realizing that his mother had lied to him. Because it was a multifaceted situation, because Jack was doing what he thought was right, and he ended up doing what couldn't have been more wrong. And it ended him up in jail. And then you had the mom trying to run away and hide from the problem and hide her son from the shame, and in turn she ended up lying to him. And so then he finds out his dad's really in prison. So there was a dynamic there that was quite a bit, but it was just no way that they could have fit that whole scenario into the movie.
Yeah.
His dad, though, he was so happy to see dad.
Yes. Just the look on his face was really sweet.
He is, because he looked at him, and it was like it was the same look that he had on his face when they were playing scavenger hunt.
Yes.
Yeah, he was happy.
I love Danny's line. He's like, I found you, Daddy.
I found you, Daddy. He was so engaging.
Oh gosh.
That child
was a great job.
Oh, he did. He had my heart, and those blonde tuffy curls, and he was just charming little boy.
Yes. Do we want to get into Shane and Oliver's storyline?
Absolutely.
The first scene is, right at the beginning of the movie, and Shane is with Rita and Hazel, and she gets a notification on her phone. I wrote, "Who is Alex Brighton?" And, the text says, "We need to talk, please. I messed up. I love you."
I'm sorry. I'm not really the jealous type of person. I'm I could say I'm territorial, but not jealous per se. That would cause me a bit of mistrust, right, or a bit of questioning right there, because that was pretty heavy.
Yeah. Did you think it was who it actually was in the beginning? Like, did you think it was a guy at
I
first?
did.
I did too.
No
Yeah.
way. You know what? I felt about that scene like I did when Oliver was in Lost Without You, and we all thought that when he went to try to get Joe out of the tent that something had happened to him. That's how tight my chest got on this. Because I was like, if that woman hurts Oliver, I'm going to tell you, I'm stopping. I'm not going to watch Signs Still Delivered anymore.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I'm done. So I was like, Shane, I love you, girl. I'm going to give you one more chance. That better not be a dude.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, he can't have one more person leave him. He can't have one more person.
I know.
But there you go. I made assumptions.
Yes. I think probably all of the postables thought it was a guy at first.
I did, and I was to the point where I wanted Rita to pull a classic Rita and take the phone and throw it out the window of the Star Cruiser.
Oh my gosh. The next scene is when they're in the DLO. They're talking about the camera, and we talked a little bit about this a little while ago, but Shane had no idea Oliver was a chemistry buff.
Nope.
When Oliver was younger, he asked his dad for a chemistry set, but he felt he was spending too much time indoors, so he signed him up for Little League instead. Shane says, how long did that last? 3 games. Too much dirt.
Was so perfect. And that was another callback to the hand sanitizer and the cows.
Oh, yes.
And it was just like, as soon as he reached out, she knew petting that cow was going to be just horrible for him because he doesn't like to get his hands dirty.
Oh, goodness. The flirting and the DLO. I loved this scene.
Oh, yes.
That first comment when Rita is talking about having a camera for the guests at the wedding, and she says, well, everybody has cell phones nowadays, and Shane looks at Oliver and she's winking at him and she says, well, not everybody.
I know. And and when he gets that look on his face, like he looks at her like he heard her, but it's almost like when they were in the Mailbox Grill and she tells him when they're talking about going to Montaldo's and getting back on the horse. Yes. And she said, Oliver, you're, for somebody that is, yeah. So she said, you're just so practical. And he goes, really? It just makes his day.
Oh my goodness. That's so cute.
They're just adorable.
Oh, yes. Oliver says something about there's something so satisfying about not being able to press delete in favor of another photo with better lighting. And then he goes on to say, sometimes it's the imperfections in life that make something perfect. Well, you still have something on your face. Shall I wipe it off, or should I just leave you perfect?
Oh my gosh. It's just,
trust me,
prime real estate, that scene. It is it does, well, first of all, I think Norman is over there about ready to become tongue-tied himself. He was to the point where it was making comfortable. And because you never see the PDA from he and Rita. They are very they're very discreet. They'll give each other a smile or a look, but there's never a touch. And Shane is a very touchy person. And so she touches Oliver a lot. And it even goes all the way through vows when she's got her arm hooked in his, and she is showing everybody they're a couple. Yes. And has no inhibition doing that. And Oliver is warmed up to it quite a bit.
Yes, I love the PDA from them. I love
it's not out of it's totally Hallmark.
Yes.
and it's a beautiful thing. And what it is it's teaching, it's helping him to peel off the layers of all the time that he's been pent up, not being so afraid to show his emotions.
Yes.
And Shane is bringing that out in him, and it's such a beautiful transformation.
It is. And the looks between them, especially the looks Oliver gives Shane, I'm like, oh
Well,
my
did you
goodness.
But you got to see the raised eyebrow a little bit, because when she cleaned off his face and they just took that moment to stare into each other's eyes, it was like when your Bonnie eyes are so blue, she's like, they're looking at each other, and it was just amazing to see that in
so cute.
the smolder.
Yes, the smolder. I was like, oh my goodness.
I know, it was definitely fan worthy.
Yes. Oh, they're so cute.
They are.
Oliver teaching Norman how to drive. This was hilarious.
It is. And the fact that what I loved about that scene, well, I loved many things about the different scenes that were with Norman and his beginning to learn how to drive, was when Oliver remembered that he had a learner's permit.
Yes. Yes.
He was telling him in no uncertain terms, I'm going to get you behind the wheel. I know you have a learner's permit.
Yes.
A typical brotherly move.
Yep. Shane and Rita, they are talking about the wedding and the cake and the music and the invitations. Rita wants the invitations to be owls, or in the shape of owls.
Whimsical.
Yes, a little bit of whimsy in your wedding, I think was the line.
It was. I loved it. Yeah. And Rita is perfect description of her.
Yes. Guess who's getting married? Oh, that's perfect.
It was really cute.
After the conversation with Shane and Rita about the wedding, it jumps back to Oliver talking to Norman about driving. And he says, you have to keep a good balance between looking behind and looking forward. Got it. And most importantly, you have to treat her with respect. Don't push her too hard. She might break down. We don't want that.
No. And that was so perfect because of the double meaning behind it. And that it would later to he and Shane and his overheating.
Yes. He goes on to say after that, Oliver, no, before too long, with patience, determination, you start to become one. We have been talking about the Star Cruiser, right?
And it's funny because Norman is so intuitive.
Yes.
He really comes up with all sorts of lines that you would never expect at that moment for him to be delivering. And he does it flawlessly.
He does. More flirting with Shane and Oliver in the mobile command unit.
I know, I love it. It sounds so official.
I love this scene too. Another favorite from this movie. Shane says, I know you like to keep things professional, but we're out of the office now, so it's okay to call me Shane. We are out of the office, but we are in the mobile unit. A fine distinction, perhaps. I knew you'd say that. You did. I just like hearing you say it because I know you, Mr. O'Toole. Oh, look, exit 41, so close.
I know that line is just like, I could literally hear them say that over and over again. It is just so
cute. It's adorable.
Yeah. It is, because if you think about Shane and Shane's experience, it's far greater than Oliver's.
Yes.
You know, she dated a spy after all. And her relationships, even though they don't really talk about them, you can just tell that she was so much more worldly than Oliver was, with getting out and being in the world, and her technology and, you know, Googling things and figuring things out. And his is all related to looking it up in a phone book and dialing on the blue phone. And so was just the fact that it took him a while to catch up to her. And I thought it was amazing how she slowed down at some point and she backed up to his pace.
Yes.
And that is what I loved about the slow burn of their relationship, was not just the expected things in that slow burn relationship, but the unexpected gems out. And it was the love that you saw grow with two people that became best friends. And then they turned around, and the one that was a bit stronger than the other in areas stopped and waited for the other one to catch up.
Yeah.
And I think they showcased in this movie especially.
Yes, that is so true. I love the slow burn relationship that they've had over the course of the canon.
But it wasn't angsty by any means. There was no break. There was no typical Hallmark where one is buying the piece of property the other one knows nothing about, or they accidentally meet up for lunch with the ex-boyfriend. Everything about the relationship, it was the two of them doing the dance together. And if we really want to think about it theoretically, they never danced with anyone else but each other from the get-go.
Yes, I saw what you did there. Theoretically.
I love Signed, Sealed, Delivered.
Me too. There is also a little thread I've noticed.
Yes.
With this scene and Shane's comment about knowing Oliver. We've heard that a few more times over the course of the canon. The first time was in Truth Be Told, in the DLO scene, the iconic DLO scene. When she says, I know you and your faith is in something far greater than being an O'Toole.
Yes.
Home Again, the going steady scene. After she offers Oliver the hand sanitizer, she says, I just know you that well. This movie, the scene that we just talked about, I know you, Mr. O'Toole, and endows with another iconic scene in the DLO. I know you and I still love you.
I know, that is one of my all-time favorite. That was the creme de la creme of lines. And between the song, the scene, it's I can tell you, I have that song on my playlist.
I do too.
And when I'm driving in my car and that song comes on, I always pray that I won't run off the road. So much emotion is in that. And it's so funny how the impact that a writer and this group of actors and the stories and the music that's put to it, and the words, it's amazing how it can impact so many lives. And it does it. And I can honestly tell you, I don't think that there is any movie out there on any network that will draw out that much emotion as these Signed, Sealed, Delivered movies.
Yes. I love in that scene as Shane is walking back to her seat, Oliver, checks to make sure that she makes it back to her seat safely. I thought that was really sweet.
It was, because it's like, at first you looked at it and you thought, they were in the moment of flirting, and you kind of didn't know, like he was kind of looking at her like his girlfriend walking back kind of thing. But then when you really looked at it and saw the look on his face, that's what it was. He was making sure she was able to sit down without having a problem or falling. And I think he'll always be there to catch her in some way.
Yes.
So it was cute. Very cute.
Rita wants to know who Alex Brighton is, because
I love her though. She just flat out asked it.
Yeah. She's like, who's Alex Brighton?
And then she's like, I didn't mean to be. And then Shane's like, oh, it's okay. And then made some little excuse about it.
Yeah.
I just wish would have come out and felt like she could have said something to, and as in tune with Oliver as she is, it just shocked me in a way at times that she couldn't just come out and tell him.
Yeah. She says that she has been getting a lot of wrong numbers recently. And I wrote, Rita isn't convinced.
No, Rita is super smart. The beautiful part of the Postable group, they all have their little idiosyncrasies that make them unique and special, but each one of them is highly intelligent. And that's what I love about it. They're smart, they're funny, they're real. They're just like somebody you would know. They're friends that you would have at a dinner party. They're just they're.
Yeah. I won't mention anything in the blog post because I don't want to spoil it for the Postables who haven't read it. But there is a great write-up about Shane's journey in The Road Less Traveled, with everything going on with Alex and, not sharing what's going on.
Gotcha.
And her messages from her sister on Alameda and Downing. And it's called The Cost of Cover-Up. That was a great post. I read it a while back.
I actually have read that one. And I'm telling you, that blog is one of the best out there. So on, and I had forgotten it until you just now mentioned it because it was a while ago. But I would, anybody that enjoys these movies as much as most of us do, and they've already seen the movie and they want to recap it, to go back and read some of those is just so.
Yeah, there's other great articles or blog posts I wanted to mention briefly for this movie. Shondell has some great ones on Shane's wardrobe. There's one titled Overcoming Assumptions. And for that, there's one on Shane, Oliver, and Norman separately, but those are great too.
I love Shondell. She is just amazing.
Yes, she is. Oliver's relationship roadmap. So it talks a little bit about his journey in this movie. And then the interview with Brandy Harkonnen, who co-wrote The Road Less Traveled with Martha.
Cool.
They're all great. Postables, go check them out if you haven't already. The next scene is when Oliver and Norman are in the RV while Shane and Rita are getting lunch, and Oliver sees Shane's phone.
Yes, he does. I think what most impresses me is that when Norman is kind of muttering to him about, that he hopes that Shane will remember that he likes whatever sandwich, and he turns around, well, I think we know each other well enough by now.
Yeah.
And then that's when the phone dings. And that was revelation to the audience and to Oliver that obviously this woman that he's starting to give his heart to, maybe he really doesn't know who she really is. It was a heavy moment.
Yes. The conversation after lunch, and Rita and Norman, they're doing their own thing. Rita's sitting at the picnic table and looking at the bridal magazine. Norman is bird watching with his binoculars, which we'll talk about because I have some of the lines written down for when we get to Rita and Norman.
It was so great.
Shane and Oliver are doing their own thing. Shane is looking at the pictures again from the camera. And I love this line from Shane. She says, "But I believe what you've taught me, Oliver, that a child didn't just drop a camera into a mailbox. He mailed a piece of hope, and somehow it found its way to us. And here we are in a star cruiser. We have no idea where we're going, but I know that we're on our way, and I'm trusting that we'll get there. Do you believe that? Yes. Trust the timing, right?
That scene was such a testimony to the evolution of her faith right there.
Yes.
She was oblivious to his body language and the look and everything that was going on with him, because she was so in tune to the fact she believed that everything was going to work out the way it was supposed to work out, that she trusting the timing, that they were on the same page, and the love that she had for him in that moment was so real. And it was a beautiful scene. But see, what it showed is how it came full circle, and Oliver started following her lead and her faith and her belief, and that got him through that snag. It wasn't just that these two people love each other and want to play moony moony and tootsie tootsie kissing each other. It was deep, and it was, and that's Martha Moonwater right there. That's Martha Williamson. That is her all the way.
Yes, I totally agree.
She totally finds a way to put her faith in there and show everybody it can be bad, but it can be good real quick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What did you think about their disagreement in the RV? That was tough.
It was tough, but it was even though Rita, after the heated little tiff between, well, Oliver was simmering. I guess I'll start at the beginning. Oliver was simmering like a pot, and the incessant dinging was enough for Oliver into itself to be disturbing, because he does not like technology. He doesn't like cell phones, and that dinging alone was an irritant to him. And then you take a layer of jealousy, and he's trying to maintain and hold it all in. And then when he just can't take it anymore, when the RV breaks down, that was it. That was his tipping point. And he just got snarky, really snarky. And it was funny how Rita, like when Shane is upset and, like, where, who are you and where is Oliver? She wasn't recognizing who he was. And it's funny how once he storms out of the SUV, Rita, she can't understand why Norman is behaving the way he's behaving. And the two of them were just in a quandary about what was wrong with their men. It was so funny. But it was bad but funny at the same time.
Yeah. I have most of the dialogue written down from Shane and Oliver. She says, if you pump it too much, you'll flood it. I am familiar with the concept of fuel injection, Miss McInerney, but thank you for your concern. Is there anything else you would like to tell me before we proceed? I don't know. It's just I've been through something like this before. A breakdown, a temporary failure to restart. It just takes some patience. Patience? So I shouldn't check for cracks in the manifold or the water levels. I don't know what I was thinking. All I need is patience. I'm sure that's in the owner's manual somewhere. I'm sorry. Who are you and what have you done with Oliver?
It was so hilarious because it was like a typical argument over something really not huge, but it was so funny how all the verbiage was used to talk about the breakdown of the SUV, but when essence it was all about the texting.
I know.
And the way that they both went at it was so similar. They fight. They both fight snarky, and they both come up with all these metaphors and different things to interject into the conversation, where you have to, it's back to the DLO when Shane looks at him and says, and I might be the only one that understands what you just said. It's
because she knows him.
She knows him that well.
Yes.
I love it. I
do too.
They needed to get the angst out, and the only way they were going to get it out was through that scene, and they just had to get it out.
I kind of love snarky Sholiver.
I love it when they do that because it makes them real.
Yes.
when everybody is Pollyanna and the relationships are all going super well, that does not depict real life.
No.
And Martha takes this faith-led relationship, and now they're both in concert as far as their faith goes. So the rest of it is just human nature that gets in the way, and assuming something and not talking and communicating about it. And she was teaching them that in order for them to come back together. And what the other thing that I loved about it, when he was counseling Norman outside the SUV on his and Rita's relationship, and then she was over counseling Rita as well. And then what was beautiful is that this was the sign of the true love. It reminded me too of Val's when Oliver comes up at the end and he says to Shane, "Are you ladies ready?" And she goes, "In a minute." And it was almost like, "I'm fine."
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a normal relationship, because you're not prepared to just say, "Oh, okay, well, we walked around for 5 minutes, so it's all over."
Yeah.
And that was beautiful in this movie. And I loved when Oliver said about giving that in a relationship, that he knows this from experience, that when you're in a relationship, you have to give her your whole heart and pray she keeps it.
Oliver says, "You can't start a marriage holding back a piece of your heart. You're better off giving her all of it from the beginning and just pray she wants to keep it."
Yeah. It's and that was what he learned at that point.
Comes to a head in Vows.
It does. And it's everybody out there, if you haven't seen it, if you are having trouble finding it, whatever is going on, I just pray that you're able to see it, because it's a masterpiece.
Yes, definitely. Oh yeah, Shane's comment that you had just mentioned a few minutes ago, when Oliver steps out of the RV, she's like, "Did Oliver just overheat?"
Yes. It was fun. That was funny.
Yes.
And you've got what does Rita say? What is her line about putting the miles? Got to put a lot of miles.
I guess you never really know somebody until you put down some serious miles, I'll say.
And the way she delivers that line is priceless. It's like, you look at her and she just looks like, the look on her face, she's so serious.
Yes.
She was doubting her Norman.
Yes, she was. Also, before that, when they arrived at the food stand.
Yes.
It's very brief, but you see Oliver offer his hand to Shane as she steps out of the RV.
Consummate gentleman. And no matter, that's just whatever they're going through or whatever he was thinking was happening, he never lost sight of how much he cared for her.
Yes.
And even when he overheated and he wanted to get back on to drive again, he wanted her to be his co-pilot.
Miss McInerney, would you care to be my co-pilot?
I literally, when he does that, I'm half between a tear and a smile.
Yes. I wrote,
it's so sweet.
I wrote in all caps, yes, and not just for this trip, for life.
For life. That's right. Co-pilot for life. And that was just so cute. Miss McInerney. Miss McInerney.
Yes. They apologized, which was a sweet moment. Shane is the owner's manual. And she's like,
you have to look. And the thing that amazes me about the two of them is that they don't, their love becomes so tight, that it's wound so where one becomes the other. And they understand it's a different reaction between each one of them. Hers is where she is almost protective of him.
Yes.
And she looks out for him and makes sure all of his needs are met, the things that make him comfortable. And because Holly never did that. And he, in turn, even it's voiced a lot, he just wants to make her happy. And her happiness has become greater than his.
Yes.
And that is the true love right there that will stand the test of time. And it's wonderful that Martha has woven that storyline together, because that's what they've done. Shane always had his back, always looked out for him, even when he didn't realize it. And now it's come full circle, and they just tend to each other's needs, and it's a beautiful thing.
It is really beautiful. It's one of my favorite things of SSD.
I agree. Their relationship is one that I have to honestly say this hands down. I feel like this is a television relationship that I feel has become a household name. Shane and Oliver, I feel like they will be generationally. I feel generations to come will know who they are, and they'll know how they got to where they are. And I think that's a testimony to those two actors and to Martha.
Yes, they're incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine anyone else playing Shane and Oliver.
I couldn't either. It was truly a match made in heaven.
Okay. I love Rita and Norman, of course. They're amazing too. But Shane and Oliver, they're my number one favorite TV couple in history. Not gonna lie.
I don't care, big screen, TV, anybody can put them up against anybody. And there is a chemistry there that they have created. And they've got the natural component of who they are. And then they have immersed themselves into these characters. And these characters are Shane and Oliver. There's no way that you could ever see anyone else playing them.
No.
I'm satisfied.
Yes. They even beat Jack and Elizabeth on When Calls the Heart.
I hands down they do. They literally are they're the best. They are when I tweet or something and I say they are the best at what they do, it's not cliche. I mean, they are the best at what they do.
Yes, I agree.
They're amazing. Yep, I agree. That's why we need many, many more years to come.
Yes, please, Hallmark. We would love more SSD.
We thank you for everything you do for us, but we really, really, really want more.
Yes. We get to the scene when they're leaving Melvin's melons, and she's talking about losing her hotspot. She's like, lost my hotspot. And he's like, excuse me? No mobile internet, so no laptop connection, so no GPS, hence the map. Who are you, and what have you done with Shane McInerney? Oh, don't worry, she's not going anywhere.
And that line is so important. Out of all the lines that are in that movie, which Lord knows there are so many to choose from that are fabulous, that line hits home so much in every single movie of the canon, because the hugest fear that Oliver carries with him is being left. He feels that he is one of those people that no one wants to stay with. And it's just as sad as it's heartbreaking. It's just terrible on every level. But when Shane makes just that small comment that she's not going anywhere, and that's another callback to several movies when she says the same thing to him. And I just feel like that's the most impactful line that she uses when she speaks to him.
Yes. I think another callback is actually from Truth Be Told, when she says, I just didn't want to leave you alone.
She said, I just didn't want to leave you alone. Yeah. And the other one that stands out in my mind is when it's in Truth Be Told, and it's when they're at the swing, the porch swing, and when she looks at him and lets him know that I have no intentions on leaving. If it matters. And
yes. Another great scene.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, this is probably my favorite scene in the movie. especially when it comes to Shane and Oliver.
Okay.
You know which one I'm talking about, the one outside the lodge.
Yes.
And before Rita and Norman walk away, I think Oliver had given the room key to Shane
Rita.
or Rita, so that they can stay at the lodge, and Oliver and Norman will sleep in the RV.
Yes.
And Shane says, Oliver O'Toole, man of courage. Oliver says, courage takes many forms, Miss McInerney. And then Rita and Norman leave, and Shane is trying to get information out of Oliver about what he knows with Rita and Norman's situation. And he's like, oh, I'm not telling.
Which it was wonderful.
Yeah. And she says, good, I'd be disappointed in you if you did. As she's taking his hand, that was really sweet.
I just thought it was so sweet that it was the gesture. And what I liked about it is that Martha makes their gestures, Shane and Oliver, one of their love gestures is hands, and Oliver is one who always extends his hand for her to take. And whether it's dancing or when he took her hand to go chat with her, that's something that it's very important for him. It's the gentleman thing in him. The gentleman thing in him to do is take a woman's hand. And so he takes her hand. And so to me, it was a complete flip for her to take his hand first.
Yes.
And do it in a gesture where it was more of the, boyfriend, girlfriend kind of thing, where she reaches, couples thing where she reaches in and intertwines the hand.
Cute.
I felt that was a really defining moment.
Yeah, it showed she is confident in her love for Oliver.
And they're in a relationship. It's not just casual. They're in a relationship.
They start talking about tests. And I love how Oliver asks, he's like, is this a test, Miss McInerney? I wrote, call back to higher ground, because Shane says at the E-flat lounge, there may be a test later.
I know. And it was so funny because it was the complete opposite, though. Even though it was a callback, it was a complete opposite because she wanted to keep his pen. And I think it was a quick reaction to there might be a test later, was her way of kind of sidetracking him so she could keep the pen, his grandfather's pen. And with this movie, it was so different because she said no, she hates tests because people take tests and they I can't recall the line, but something about failing. And it was so funny because if you think about it, it was the complete opposite on each one of them, but it was where they both took a flip. It was just great.
Yes. I also feel like that line in Higher Ground was foreshadowing when she said there may be a test later.
Exactly. And it was the whole thing was just beautifully set up, from the dusting off of the bench to having so much fun chatting and her drawing on the napkin, and they were getting infinitely closer with their love for music. And one thing led to another and another, and then the kiss, and then the walk home, and the whole thing. That was a date.
Yeah. I also think that line was foreshadowing to this movie and the road.
That there would be a test.
Yeah.
Although
we didn't know what that test would be.
Nope, but I do agree with you, and it makes perfect sense.
The line you were talking about, she says, that's how a relationship ends. You fail someone else's test you didn't even know you were taking.
And it's true.
We are in a relationship, aren't we? I'm going to go with yes.
That was so cute.
Yes. Oliver asks Shane who Alex Brighton is, which is good.
It was very forward of him, and that was so unlike him. That just was a testimony to the audience, how much he was committed to her and wanting this to work.
Yes. Shane says, if I tell you that I'm not ready to talk about it yet, will you trust me? Oliver says yes. She says, can we still hold hands while I'm working things out? Shane, I'm not letting go.
Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, that was priceless. That scene was
This
just
scene,
yeah, it was a heart grabber, that one.
I know, I melt every time I watch
It's
this movie.
it's totally swoon worthy. It's
Yeah.
swoon worthy. It's the build up from the time that she grabs his hand and they start walking till he kisses her. That 2 minutes that's going on there are two of the best minutes like ever.
Yes. The kiss
Yeah.
and the forehead lean was really sweet.
It was we've arrived.
Yes.
I was just like taken aback.
I have to say that scene is up there in favorite Sholiver scenes.
It's with me too. It always has been. And I think why it grabbed me so much was the fact that that was when I believed that this relationship was going to continue and grow, because they both had such trust issues, and for different reasons. And it seemed like there were so many bridges that were crossed and so many doors that were open in their hearts, to want to trust each other. And it was just award worthy, that scene. It was, they both, the scene literally could have been on the big screen.
It was amazing. Their
Yep,
acting is incredible every time.
I agree.
There is also a thread with things said throughout the canon in regards to this scene. In the treasure box,
Mm-hmm.
Shane and Oliver, as they're reading Jonathan and Catherine's letter,
Uh-huh.
it says, "Why did I let you go?" Shane in higher ground, but then I'd have to let go.
Uh-huh.
Oliver, the word less traveled. Shane, I'm not letting go. And Shane in the vows we have made, I'm gonna hold on.
Uh-huh.
Martha's weaving blows me away every single time.
Absolutely. I can't even, when you think about fans of actors, writers, movies, whatever, when you have this many people, men and women alike, that watch Signed, Sealed, Delivered, and they can recall and recount words and scenes and sentences and plays on words and callbacks and little nuggets and Easter eggs all over the place, that is telling to the person that penned it to paper.
Mhm.
Because it's like a great poet or an author. Um, we remember them for their words. And the beautiful part of this journey is not only do we get to experience the amazing, magical Martha Williamson's words, but we get to experience these incredible actors that can take her words and actually embrace them to the point that they make them indelible in our minds.
Yes, that is so true. Going back to the scene at Minnie's Diner, which we talked a lot
Yes.
about earlier with the letter story,
Mm-hmm.
Shane starts talking about her sister. She says that she has a big gambling problem. She gambled her whole life away and tore apart their family in the process. And they haven't talked in a long time. Oliver's gesture of support just melts my heart.
When he touches her hand, her arm, and the look, that brief, just second look, and she just looks up at him briefly and smiles. They look like they were a married couple already.
I know.
They look like they had been through years of understanding the other one's emotions, and really, just like he says later, he knows who she is. And that was the callback to the vows. I know who you are.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I still love you. I know who you are. And they're just, so much of it's wrapped up and it's indelible. We just, all of us, just, it's in our hearts.
Yes. This next scene is my second favorite scene in the episode. Their conversation outside the diner.
Mhm.
He says that, she's never mentioned her sister before, and she tells him that she hasn't because it's just too hard. And she says after that, "You thought you knew me, right? I still do. I just don't know your sister. You're two different people. You're Shane McInerney." And Shane tells Oliver that her sister is Alex Brighton.
It was beautiful.
Yes.
And it was, what was what grabbed me is that Oliver, as untrusting as he is, and it took him so long to overcome so many of those issues, he knew in his heart that Shane loved him. He knew that he loved her. He
Yes.
knew that he wanted to hold on and that he wasn't going to let her go. And he did all that without knowing who Alex Brighton was.
Exactly.
And the cherry on top was when it was revealed that text was Alex Brighton, was the sister.
Yes.
And how glorified inside must he have felt just knowing that the feelings that he was having for Shane, and that they were ever changing and growing and maturing, and to know that he actually got it right this time, that he picked the right gal. Yeah. And it, it was just amazing how that turned out. I felt like it was I felt like that scene was so much more worthy of accolades than probably it receives.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. She goes on to say that she's not happy with what she did to their mother, all the sleepless nights, the ruined holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Their mom even sold the house to pay for the debt and to put Alex through rehab. She's afraid to return her calls because she doesn't know what she's going to say, so she just doesn't.
Yep.
The next lines are my favorite in the scene. Shane says, "What was I thinking making that deal with Rachel? It seemed like a good idea at the time, but now I actually have to do it."
Huh.
Yes, but you won't have to do it alone, Shane.
Oh my God.
I thought the sun rose and set with her. There is only one person I know who's in charge of that. Everyone else, we just have to forgive for being human.
Oh man. It just tears you up on every level, because you feel both of them. You feel the past pain, the disappointments, and then you feel the unity of where they are, and that neither one is going to let go.
Nope, not at all.
It's just beautiful. Beautiful.
Can we just give a round of applause to Eric and Kristen? They
absolutely
blow it out of the park every single time.
They do. Never disappoint. And I think it was enlightening for me and probably many of the postables that ordered behind the scenes cameos when they were in Vancouver filming the last movie. Because when you saw, especially with Eric, because he does a lot of the heavy lifting with lines, and the rest of the cast is bar none amazing at their craft and what they do. Not diminishing one of them by any means,
not at all.
But he did a cameo for me, and he said, "Penny, I'm about the tiredest I have ever been in my life." And the very end of the cameo was what amazed me, is he turns around and he said, "I wish I could tell you what I'm filming, but it would give so much away, but today," it was the day they were filming the wedding. He said, "But today is a very special day." And he said, getting ready to go into hair and makeup. And he said, "The only thing is," he said, "it is going to be phenomenal." And he puts up his fingers like this and he goes, "But that is if I don't screw anything up."
Oh.
And that is the humility of him as a person and as an actor. And that is one of my favorite things about him, is the fact that he keeps it real, and he he is gracious about his craft and what he does, and that he still is yet worried that he might go in and not make that scene the best that it could be, when we all sit back and look at him and we're like, we're blown away by you, dude.
I know. Yes.
It's phenomenal. But that's when you think about what goes into these scenes that we see that are so lovely and so flawlessly performed. But it's like, you've got this guy and this gal that the two actors have been up, for hours, 15, 16 hours a day on set and on their feet and in the heat or the cold or whatever, and they're pouring out everything that they can into this character. I know it's their job, but they're doing it to please their fans and to do right by us.
Yes. Yes,
I had to share that, because I just feel like a lot of people, maybe even the new postables, they have no idea the signed, sealed, delivered cast, what they pour into each performance.
No, they don't.
But but they will now.
Yes. I've said it many times and I'll say it again. SSD has the best and the kindest cast in TV history, in my opinion.
And I believe your opinion is very accurate, Nicole. I second that.
They're all amazing.
They are, every one of them, and what they bring to the table, and even the cast members that aren't our Fab Four. We've got we've got Zach, and we've got Gregory and Jill, and everybody that supports the supporting cast members. They are all, in my book, they are all number one billing. They're all top notch.
Yes. The last scene is the DLO scene with Shane calling Alex. Another favorite.
The tell her you have a boyfriend scene.
Postables, we don't have video, but for anyone wanting to know what we're doing, we're fanning ourselves right now.
It is. It's great
really
scene.
Sweet.
That's the whole thing right there, is that it comes off swoon worthy, but the bottom line is it's about solidarity and it's about support, and it's about Oliver embracing the bad with the good that goes with Shane. And she has done that with him time and again, with his family, with everything that he's gone through, the death of his real father, and thinking it was his father that he truly did love. And she was able to afford him the luxury of her being there. And this was a time where he was able to give back to her.
Yes.
And it was beautiful.
It was. I'm a little disappointed that it got cut a little bit in the US version.
I am too.
I have the parts that were cut out. So, she's talking on the phone and she says, still in Denver. No, I love it, actually. They cut out the extra I love it for the US version.
And that's such a shame. I'm happy for the Canadian version. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. And of course we have the wonderful
the hand kiss.
Yes.
It's a little bit longer in the international version.
It is. And definitely we're grateful for the postables in Canada, especially Dee Dee is one that shares a lot of those extra scenes, and it's just so appreciated for us to be able to see those, because we're not privy to it, but it's just a blessing to be able to see that extra few seconds.
Yeah, shout out to Dee Dee.
I know. I like to give her a shout out. She is from the day that I stepped onto the postables. Dee Dee has always been welcoming, and I share the love of music that the group has, and just little things here and there. And she is definitely a super good person.
Yeah, she's really sweet. Of course, we get Oliver saying, "Tell her you have a boyfriend," and Shane says, "I have a boyfriend. He's everything I never knew I wanted." They cut out the part when she said he's wonderful. Oh,
Oh, and that is so crucial, that part. It just it was the icing on the cake, and it was a shame they cut that out. It's just like Eric had said quite a bit, that Martha is tasked with, she sits in that editing room, and it is it's not for the faint-hearted to assume that role and to cut things down. So she just puts it all together. And and also you have to think about it, when she does it, she is not really thinking that the uncut version is going to be out there, and that a lot of the postables won't be able to see it. She's just, I've got to cut this in order to make the time so that the network is going to be happy with it and be able to run it.
yeah, it's true. I mean, I understand that. It's still disappointing though.
It's very disappointing. And the first time that I realized that we were missing out on several really wonderful lines, I was like, doggone it, that's a bummer.
I know.
But that's okay, because
it doesn't take away from the scene.
Exactly. It doesn't take away from it. And it's like anything else. If you don't really know it exists, you don't miss it. But once you find out, then you do miss it.
Yes. Do we want to talk some about Rita and Norman?
Yes, please. We love our Norita.
Norita, yes.
Norita.
Yes, they're amazing too.
They absolutely are.
I love the first scene when Hazel is asking Rita where she and Norman are going on their honeymoon, and she tells her that they're going to drive the Star Cruiser and that they'll probably just take that somewhere fun, but there's so much more to do first. And then Hazel says, "How far have you gotten on the list?" The list? What list? There's 100 things to do.
And there's actually 1,000 things on the list, but she's just narrowing it down to the first 100.
Yes. She says there's 100 things to do. Of course not. There are thousands. Those are just the first 100.
I love it. That is so sweet. And only Jill could deliver that, because she just absolutely, with that smile and the perkiness that she has, she gets away with a lot on there because of the things that she's just so adorable. Because she actually, it's like she I love it when Shane will look at her sometimes and goes, "Hazel, go."
Yes.
Like, I'm done with you. But Hazel is a love.
Yes. I love Shane's line. She says, "Thank you, Hazel. As usual, you've been nothing but helpful."
In other words, you're not helpful at all. Not so much.
Shane taking Rita for coffee and talking about wedding planning. They're going through the list, and they first mention the minister, and Shane says, "What about Norman's grandmother? She's very spiritual."
That's great.
Yeah. They get to the calligrapher, and Shane says, "Have you seen Oliver's penmanship?"
That's a good one.
I love that line.
I think I do too. I had just watched it again, the movie, I would say probably a week ago, and it was so fun because I was really enjoying that.
Yeah.
That line, I love that line.
I do too. Shane suggests that they have their reception at Bistro Ramon, and then I can't remember Rita's line after that, but then Shane replies to that with, "Now all you need is the perfect man," which of course you already have.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yes. Their time after lunch when Norman is bird watching and Rita's looking at the magazine.
Oh my God, that is crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm serious. Jeff should do stand-up comedy. He's so hilarious.
I have the lines written down. Rita is looking through the magazine, of course, and she's reading the article. She says, "Norman, I need you to pay attention for a second. Run! Norman!" What? I'm sorry.
It is hilarious. And the way he runs, it is, oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
I just back it up so I can watch him run again.
I know.
He's great.
Yes. They start going over the questions with Shane and Oliver's help. The first one is about religion, and it says, how important is religion to you? Rita says, very. Oliver says, religion or faith? Because faith and religion are two. And then, Shane interrupts him. She says, question number 5, how do you plan to handle your finances? What finances? We work for the post office. We'll figure it out later. Next question.
It's so funny though, because it's true. They the only thing that they had the problem with was the children.
Yes.
It was funny.
Speaking of children, question number 6, do you plan to have a family? And if so, how many children will you have? Well, I think that we'll probably just, and then Norman sees the bird, or Norman sees another bird and he starts running off. He's like, oh, hey, look.
It's priceless. I mean, absolutely priceless.
The facial expressions from all of them are just like,
well, they are. And could you imagine like just doing that scene together and knowing what's going to happen and seeing him run like that?
oh,
I'm
poor
serious.
Rita.
That's prime real estate. That's good.
Oh, poor Rita.
I know. I felt so sorry for her because she was so confused. And, when he finally came out and confessed the real story, it was like such a relief. It was a relief. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
We already mentioned it, but the back and forth conversation between Oliver and Norman and Shane and Rita, I really loved that.
Mm-hmm.
Norman driving the RV with the song Born to Be Wild.
Born to Be Wild, and when he's sweating profusely and he's driving and he's being so funny, and when he hits
the sun
and then they talk about, Oliver talks about the mattress that he hit in the road. Oh my gosh, I was absolutely loving it. I was having a moment.
Yeah. Norman, when they pull up to Minnie's and he's like, we're here. I've always wanted to say that. It
was so cute. And him eating all of the pie because he was so tired from all the driving.
His third piece of pie.
It was so great.
Before they go into Minnie's, I love Oliver's line to him about facing the scary.
Yes. And, so much quoting his grandmother. And it was just, they've all just learned so much from the people they've met along the way. And it's just like all in life. And I think that's why so many of us love Science Delivered and the actor's portrayal of the characters, simply because they're relatable. They're your brother, your sister, they're your family, and they are absolutely relatable. And that's the compliment to Martha for digging down deep into the real life people and finding little snippets here and there that she can bring in to make it more relatable.
Yeah. The next scene is one of my favorite Rita and Norman scenes in the canon.
Mm-hmm.
Their walk and conversation on the bridge.
Oh, yes.
And I just have to give props to Jeff and Crystal because they knocked it out of the park in this scene.
They absolutely did. And I think what it is that they're just like any show that's out there, you're going to have the two main characters, and then you're going to have the supporting characters. Most of the time, there's such equality with the characters in their own little way that you don't notice that shift as much, but you really noticed it in this movie because this was a big scene for the two of them. Mm-hmm. And it was a credit to their chemistry. It was a credit to their acting ability, and to carry that scene through like they did, it was a phenomenal performance.
I couldn't agree more. I just
Mm.
love the whole dialogue. I'm not going to read it all because it would take a while, but just a little summary. Norman is talking about all the bullies that were being mean to him back in high school. And, she says that those were bullies, Norman. They could only see the different. They couldn't see the amazing. And he says, I'm not amazing, not even normal. She says, I don't care about that. You can invent male recovery protocols that nobody has even imagined. You can develop old camera film, and you can invent new chemical solutions. You can analyze the handwriting on a hopelessly ripped and mangled envelope with your eyes closed. You have special gifts, and not everyone will see that, but Oliver sure did. That's why he asked you to be part of his team. That's why I love you, because you're special.
And it just leaves you speechless.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I just don't know that Rita and Norman's characters were really able in most of the movies to have scenes like that, simply because of the way it all played out. And it was so beautiful and refreshing to see the depth of this scene and to see who they were as people, the love that Rita really had for him, and the love that she had for him well before he even knew it, and how she could not be more proud of who he is as a person.
Yes. Norman wants to adopt, and Rita always thought that that's what they were going to do. Rita's next line, she says, you are the sweetest, kindest, most loyal person I have ever met, and that's the man I want for the father of my children, the man who saves the last piece of best pie for someone else, and the one whose heart can break for a little lost boy, and he won't give up until he knows he's safe. You're safe now, Norman. You're not that boy you were in high school. You never really were. It just took a little bit longer for you to be appreciated. You were born the boy who would grow up and marry me, the Norman that I was meant to love, and the man that all sorts of children will love and call their daddy, the smartest man they will ever know.
Oh, that scene, if it doesn't do you in, nothing will.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet.
Just phenomenal.
Yes. The last scene in the movie, this one always gets me teary-eyed. They're talking to Ramon about the cake.
Yes.
And Norman doesn't like caramel. Then they go on to ask Shane and Oliver to be their maid of honor and best man for the wedding.
Best speeches ever.
Yes, I have it written down. I just have to read it. I can't resist.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I was hoping you would read it.
Yes. Norman says to Oliver, you're the first friend I ever had that truly believed in me. You taught me how to stamp and sort, forward, deliver all sorts of impossible things. You made me believe that being loved by somebody incredible like Rita was not an impossible thing. You're the best man that I know, Oliver, and I'd like you to be my best man. Rita, and you're like a sister to me, like the sister I never had. But even if I had a sister, I would still want you to be my maid of honor. Not that I have anything against my real sister that I don't even have. I just can't imagine getting married or being married or raising children. I can't imagine any of that without you. And Norman, of course. I was about to cry reading that.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Did you see the look in Oliver's eyes when Rita said getting married or being married?
Yes.
I feel like that was the moment he knew he wanted to propose to Shane.
I think so too.
You could just see that little sparkle in his eye.
It was. And he was so engaged in that moment.
Yeah.
He was present, he was there, and he was hearing everything, and you could just tell that it was that was where he mentally committed.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yes. Such a great way to wrap up
that one teared me up.
Yes. Such a great way to wrap up this movie.
I agree. Great movie, and so many good things to tell about it and think about it. And I think what is wonderful is that Postables, old and new, will enjoy the recap because it will put them in mind of things, and it will make them want to go out and watch it again, and it'll make them want to tweet and ask Hallmark for more.
Yes. That one line at the end of the scene after the best man and maid of honor comments, Norman says, "Let's go to Fiji." Shane's like, "Do not mail me a coconut."
I love it.
And
I
then
know.
Norman's like, "What do you think, Ramon?" And Ramon's like, "I love anything tropical."
He is so precious. It's like the stuff that comes out his mouth. I just want to give him a hug.
I love Zach. He is awesome.
Zach of all trades.
Yes.
And you know what? He's not only Zach of all trades. I have a feeling he's master of all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, he is a selfless, wonderful human being, and that is a rare accomplishment in this world. I applaud him.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the lessons we learned from this movie before we get to the trivia?
Sure.
Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go
Yeah.
first?
No, you go first.
Okay. The first one I have is never give up. There is no expiration date on the truth. Sometimes it's the imperfections in life that make something perfect. You can't start a marriage holding back a piece of your heart. You're better off giving it all to her from the beginning and just pray she wants to keep it. Trust the one you love and never let go, and hold hands while they're working things out. Only one person is in charge of the sunrise and sunset. Everyone else we have to forgive for being human and face the scary.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't think I have any left. I looked over here. I was trying to see if I have one left.
Great minds think alike.
You know what? And it's not that it's stating the obvious. In a way it kind of is, but those are all the touch points on what we learn from this movie. And the one thing that really sticks out in my mind is, and it carries forward in this movie and moving forward, is Oliver's theory of assume nothing.
Assume nothing.
It's huge because it's for all the Postables. It's not just for Shane's relationship. It's for the Postables, for anybody that's on there. And I think the message that it sends is not just assuming, because that can end up in a bad way for people, because most of the time it's just perception of what you think is going on, and it's really not accurate. But assume nothing is also not being judgmental, from being open, being able face situations head on and discuss them, instead of just assuming what you think the other person is thinking, or you might parlay it into don't judge a book by its cover. And these are wonderful words that Martha makes really short, but they really convey a huge message in her movies. So assume nothing has always been huge for me.
Yeah, that's a great one.
So I just have to say, I'm looking on here, it's like everyone that's the only one that was the only stone that was unturned.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, don't be, because I feel that that when people join together and they're having a discussion of any type, I feel that whether one person is able to knock it out of the park right out the gate, or someone just compliments with just a little bit extra, I feel like it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not who brings it to the table, it's that it's brought to the table.
That's true. Yes.
This is funny. As I read all these, it's like, man, that girl is it's like two peas in a pod today.
Oh, thanks. Shout out to the Postable Denise, because I had bookmarked all of her lessons learned from SSD tweets for all of these movies.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Denise. Yes, thank you, Denise. We have some trivia for the Postables. Penny, I think you're first with the first question.
Yes, my first question, how many towns in Colorado did Rita say have the word city in it? We have A is 9, B is 7, C is 4, and D is 6.
I'm going to go with 7.
You are absolutely ding, 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 ding correct.
Yay.
Yay.
How old did Oliver say he was when he asked his dad for a chemistry set? A, 10, B, 9, C, 14, or D, 12?
I really, at this time of the evening, I don't know that I can get this right, but I'm going to go with A, 10.
Ding, 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 ding. You got it right.
I actually shocked myself. Oh, that is too funny.
Good job.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Okay. What date is on Shane's phone on the second message from Alex that came through? Is it A, October 1st, B, October 10th, C, October 4th, D, October 6th?
I think it is October 10th. So B.
Ding, 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 ding. You're right.
Yay.
Go Postables. How fast does the Colorado red-tailed hawk fly? Is it A, 120 miles an hour, B, 230 miles an hour, C, 150 miles an hour, or D, 105 miles an hour?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. I don't know if I can remember. I'm gonna say 120.
Ding, 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 ding. Bravo, Nicole.
I didn't think I was gonna get that one right.
Well, you know what? You surprised yourself. You got it right, young lady.
Yay.
Yay, Nicole.
My next question is, name one type of melon Oliver mentions Colorado is famous for. Watermelon, cantaloupe, or musk melon?
I'm going to go with cantaloupe.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. Good job.
And considering that I grew up with, my dad was a farmer and that was one of the fruits that we grew, that was pretty close to home for me.
That's understandable. I love cantaloupe. It's really good.
I do too. I love melon.
Yes. How many miles did Norman drive in the RV? A, 10 miles, B, 25 miles, C, 13 miles, or D, 30 miles?
13 miles.
Ding, 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 ding.
He laid down a lot of road.
Yes. My last question is, name one other SSD movie the song Live It Up was in. So in this movie, that song was in the opening scene at the 80s party. A, 1 in a Million, B, Truth Be Told, C, Lost Without You, or D, Home Again?
Truth be told.
Meh.
No.
You're close.
I was close.
Well, a few movies away.
I cannot even, like, I am totally, yeah.
1 in a Million.
1 in a million.
Do you remember the scene it was in?
No.
I believe it was in the scene when Oliver was in the mailbox grill and Joe walks in.
Oh, yes.
And it's before
Yes.
Norman comes in with the drawing.
Yes. Now I remember it. Thank you. You are very engaging. You have exactly what it takes to be a postable. You are kind and considerate, and I am honored that you asked me to participate.
Thank you. And thank you for coming on. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to have you back on sometime.
Well, I hope you do.
Yes. Maybe for a Christmas movie or something.
Well, that would be wonderful. That
Yeah.
would be absolutely wonderful. That would be great.
We need another SSD Christmas movie.
We absolutely do. And I look forward to meeting you in person in June at Roma Drama.
Yes, I'm excited. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a great weekend.
It will be a great weekend. We'll all have a
Yes.
blast.
Yes. All right, Postables, I think that wraps up our recap of The Road Less Traveled. We're taking a little break for Easter next week, but we will be back the following week to recap To the Altar. Thank you so much for listening. We hope y'all enjoyed, and we will see you in our next episode. We love y'all. Bye.